The soldiers did not know who they were nailing to the cross. The Sanhedrin did not understand what they were signing off on, and the crowd had no idea who they were screaming at. But heaven knew exactly what was happening. The whole unseen realm was watching what was unfolding at Golgotha. The angels stood ready to intervene, but they didn't. Why? What were the angels doing while Jesus was dying on the cross? And why did not they stop it? Jesus had said it just hours before. He could call down more than 12 legions of angels. They could have intervened, but they never came. The heavenly hosts did not storm in to stop the injustice. And that is what makes this scene so unsettling, because it was not a lack of power. It was a choice. So what were the angels doing during those hours when the Son of God seemed completely alone? Where were they when he needed the most? Pay attention. This is the story of the crucifixion told from the other side. What the death of Jesus meant to the unseen world. And what was happening in heaven as the physical world went dark. Night had fallen over Jerusalem. In an olive grove called Gethsemane, Jesus prayed. The pressure on him was so immense that his body reacted. He began to sweat blood, drops falling to the ground. Jesus wasn't blind to the suffering that approached. He saw it with absolute clarity. He knew what he had to face, and the weight of that knowledge was crushing agony. He was enduring alone, an agony no one else could comprehend. But Jesus did not fear physical death. He dreaded total separation from the Father. Then, in his darkest hour, the veil between the visible and invisible parted. Suddenly, an angel appeared from heaven to strengthen him. And it's crucial to understand the purpose of this visit. The angel didn't come to rescue him, nor to prevent what was about to begin. The angel's mission was different: to strengthen him, to uphold the humanity of Christ so he would not collapse before the time. He did not come to prevent the cross, but to ensure Jesus could reach it. Who was the angel? The Bible does not mention his name. We only know that as soon as Jesus recovered, he disappeared. He returned to find entire legions of heavenly hosts watching. Millions of celestial warriors, sword sheathed, wielding power enough to consume the earth, stood motionless. Each one longed to intervene, but a higher command held them back. And just a few yards away, the scene was radically different. The disciples slept, overcome with sorrow, unaware that the history of the universe was changing right beside them. While men shut their eyes to danger, the unseen world stared it in the face. Suddenly, a sound split the night silence. The flare of torches and the murmur of voices among the olive trees. They were arriving. Heaven fell silent. The angel stepped back, and Jesus rose to his feet. The storm had begun. Torches wound through the olive trees like serpents of fire. The traitor led the way, and at the center of the garden, Jesus did not retreat. When Judas kissed him, Peter reacted as any man would. He drew his sword and cut off an ear. It was a clumsy, human, impulsive act, but it also reflected something far greater: the temptation to stop the cross by force. Then Jesus spoke a line almost no one has pondered deeply. He said, "Do you think I cannot even now call on my Father? And he would at once send me more than 12 legions of angels." 12 legions. A Roman legion numbered about 6,000 soldiers. 12 legions would be more than 70,000 heavenly warriors. And that's only the number Jesus mentions. He wasn't limited to that. It was his way of saying all of heaven could descend right now. Scripture records that a single angel struck down 185,000 Assyrian soldiers in one night. One was enough to change the course of a war. Now, imagine more than 70,000 of these beings, each with the power to destroy an entire army, watching the crucifixion with swords sheathed. But the order never came. Heaven remained silent. Why didn't the most powerful beings in the universe intervene as their creator was executed? To understand this, we have to remember that these very angels have witnessed astonishing moments throughout human history. They watched creation take shape out of the void, saw the first humans walk in Eden, and witnessed their eventual exile. They were there when the floodwaters covered the earth. They journeyed with Abraham, and they shut the lions' mouths to protect Daniel. They have watched empires rise and fall in the blink of an eye. But nothing, absolutely nothing, in their eternal existence had prepared them for what they were about to witness. The Creator stepping into His own creation under mortal law. Imagine the wonder of heaven as they beheld their commander, the Son of God, confined to the fragile body of a baby in Bethlehem. The joy overflowed so fully that a multitude of the heavenly host burst across the skies over Judea, proclaiming glory to God in the highest, and on earth, peace, goodwill toward men. The celestial legions worshipped the eternal Word, and for 33 years, the unseen realm held its breath. They watched their Lord grow, learn the carpenter's trade, and feel hunger and weariness. They attended Him in the wilderness, where the angels ministered to Him after His fast and temptation. They witnessed wonders that defied the very laws of physics He Himself had written. Yet the shadow of the cross grew longer by the day. The angels knew the script in advance.
The dust of the earth,
they had been there when the prophecies of the Messiah were given to Daniel. And after the 62 weeks, the Messiah will be cut off. And to the prophet Isaiah as well. Despised and rejected by men. A man of sorrows, acquainted with grief. But knowing the plan doesn't soften the shock of watching it unfold. But in the past few weeks, a subtle, profound shift changed the air. A heavy shadow began to settle over the mission. Jesus began to speak openly about His death. He told His disciples He had to go to Jerusalem, suffer, and be killed. His words were plain, but they weren't new to those who knew the prophecies. The angels knew the scriptures better than any human scribe, and they knew the hour was drawing near. The tension in the spiritual realm grew almost unbearable. The angels watched as Jesus cleansed the temple, driving out the merchants with an authority that made the place quake. They saw the hardening of the religious leaders, influenced by dark forces, bent on destroying the Messiah. But what shook the heavenly hosts most was not the fury of men, but the vulnerability of God. They heard the ache of humanity in their Lord's voice when He cried, "Now my soul is troubled. And what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour. But for this very reason,
your hearts be
I have come to this hour." In that sentence lay the answer to the question no angel dared to voice. Why don't we stop this? The heavenly army stood ready to obey any command, and an overwhelming helplessness seized them. Their instinct was to protect, defend, intervene. They had watched the entry into Jerusalem as the crowds waved palms, expecting political liberation. But they knew Jesus was marching toward His death. Then came the Last Supper, the final act of service. The angels looked on as Judas betrayed Jesus. And at last, He offered one final prayer. Listen to what Jesus said, because in this last prayer, He unfolded the entire plan of God. And with these words, red alerts lit up across the whole spiritual realm. Father, the hour has come. Glorify your Son, that your Son may also glorify you. For you have given Him authority over all flesh, so that He may give eternal life to all whom you have given Him. And this is eternal life, that they may know you, the only true God, and Jesus Christ, whom you have sent. I have glorified you on earth. I have finished the work you gave me to do. And now, Father, glorify me at your side, with the glory I had with you before the world existed. The hour had come. Every angel in heaven understood that the moment planned before creation was no longer a distant promise. It was now, and the angels knew it. They knew Jesus had just set the appointed hour in motion. The moment had begun, and while in the physical world, what was about to unfold was on the verge of being revealed. The unseen realm was bracing for darkness. Heaven was not caught off guard. All were on watch. Michael, the warrior archangel, and Uriel, the angel of fire and justice, watched as Jesus was arrested, their fury held in check. All of them stood in battle formation, hands on their hilts, waiting for one thing: an order, a signal, a word from the Creator. The angels understood true obedience. Their entire existence had been one of perfect submission to the will of God. But this defied everything they knew. For centuries, they had guarded the prophets, fought great battles, and leveled whole cities. But now, when the very Son of God was being unjustly arrested, brutally tried, and led toward the cross, they were under orders to do nothing. For an angel, inaction is harder than battle. Their nature is to protect the holiness of God. And to watch their king bound and beaten was a cosmic outrage. If the order had come, human history would have ended that very night in the garden. But the problem was never a lack of power. It was purpose. If Michael descended with his sword, the cross would be canceled. If the legions descended, the sacrifice would be cut short, and humanity's redemption left unfinished. Their duty was not to rescue. The angels sheathed their swords and steeled themselves for the unthinkable, to watch their Creator die so that humanity might live. And what followed wasn't a trial, it was a farce. Before the Sanhedrin, Jesus was beaten, spit on, and mocked. The Roman punishment was brutal. When the soldiers took up the flagrum, the whip tipped with lead and bone designed to rip flesh, the spiritual realm watched in horror. Imagine for a moment, you're a father, watching your child suffer. Your first instinct is to run to help, to gather them in your arms, and take the pain away. Now multiply that feeling by eternity, and you'll begin to grasp what the angels felt as they watched what was done to Jesus. Every lash was offense enough to warrant the end of the world. Yet heaven remained deafeningly silent, and you'll begin to grasp what the angels felt as they watched what was done to Jesus. Every lash was offense enough to warrant the end of the world. Yet heaven remained deafeningly silent. As Jesus' back was torn open, heaven did not descend in fire. Why? Because that was not God's plan. Justice would not be revealed through destruction. The justice to be fulfilled was not against the Roman soldiers, nor against the Sanhedrin. The true battle was against sin itself, the root of all darkness. And sin is not conquered by the sword. It is conquered by sacrifice. The angels were there when Governor Pontius Pilate offered a Passover pardon. A single prisoner set free. The crowd had to choose, Jesus or Barabbas. Barabbas was a notorious thief and murderer. Jesus had healed the sick, fed multitudes, and preached love. The choice should have been obvious, but the angels listened in horror as the crowd roared in fury. Barabbas. It was the most surreal moment in history. Humanity sparing a criminal and condemning its savior. Picture the scene from heaven's vantage point. The Son of God they had watched be born now stood alone, hands bound, face swollen from the blows, before a mob screaming, "Crucify him!" Heaven's silence must have been deafening. The helplessness of watching Jesus so exposed, so vulnerable, keeping quiet in the face of false accusations, must have been unbearable. They had heard Jesus speak with an authority that made demons tremble. With a single word, he calmed storms and moved mountains. They had watched him call the dead back to life, with nothing more than get up. And now, when his own life was on the line, he chose silence. Had Jesus raised his voice, had he revealed even the smallest fraction of his power, it would have all ended in an instant. But he kept quiet and appeared guilty, though he was the only perfect innocence the world has ever known. The angels had witnessed horrors throughout human history. They saw Cain raise his hand against Abel. They witnessed the corruption that drowned the world in the flood, but never had they seen anything so irrational as this. Pilate took water and washed his hands, saying, "I am innocent of this righteous man's blood." It was the public surrender of justice. The representative of the most powerful empire on earth confessed his moral impotence. The most sophisticated legal system of its time bowed to the pressure of a manipulated crowd. Then came the sentence: crucifixion, the cruelest, most humiliating form of execution then known, reserved for the worst criminals, and for those whom Rome wished to make suffer in public. The angels knew that crucifixion was a death devised to strip the condemned of all dignity, a proclamation of absolute contempt. And now the Prince of Peace was about to be subjected to the most brutal method of torture the Roman machine had ever devised. But there was something neither Pilate, nor the soldiers, nor the crowd understood. The angels were beginning to see it clearly. It was the original design. Human injustice was becoming the instrument of divine justice. The most heinous crime in history would be turned into the greatest act of redemption ever carried out. The hardest moment came as he shouldered the cross along the Via Dolorosa. The beam was placed on Jesus' torn shoulders, and he set out for the place called the Skull. Jesus did not walk like a victim, but like one moving with resolve toward his destiny. The crowd watched. Some wept, others hurled insults, but no one grasped the magnitude of the moment. Each step was agony, a superhuman effort. When Jesus could go no farther, Simon of Cyrene was compelled to help carry the cross. At last, he reached the appointed place, and it had a name: Mount Calvary, Golgotha in Aramaic, the place of the skull. How fitting a name for the place where the Lamb of God, who takes away the sin of the world, was about to die. The place where life itself would be nailed. The angels had seen crucifixions before. The hills of Judea were no strangers to upright timber and agonized bodies. But this time was the stage for something altogether different. The angels knew this was where the most important page. And there they cast Jesus onto the rough timber. The first strike of the hammer rang out, an echo that cut through the visible world. Then the other arm, then the feet. And when the cross was lifted, the body dropped with the pull of gravity. His arms outstretched. From the ground, it looked like the end of a defeated man, a torn body bleeding under the cold gaze. It was not the end. It was the beginning. It was the exact point around which all of history turns. It was not a tragic ending. Jesus hung there. The eternal clock moved toward its climax. The sacrifice could not be interrupted. And there, in that absolute tension, obeying orders with flawless discipline, Michael, the archangel, described in the book of Daniel as the Great Prince. He was securing the perimeter. His mission was to shield the redemptive act unfolding. For in that moment, powers and spiritual forces of evil were watching. Michael made sure that no force from the abyss disturbed that, fear, or disrupt the fulfillment of the sacrifice. But his task wasn't only to contain the enemy. He was also restraining the hosts of heaven, not by demons, not even by heavenly compassion. Millions of angels made to serve and protect, burned with the instinct to intervene. The angels had known the Son as the eternal Word. They had seen him in glory. They had worshipped him before time existed. It says, the morning stars sang while the earth was being formed. They celebrated the light. They celebrated order. They celebrated life. It was recording everything that was unfolding. Jesus had been suspended for hours between heaven and earth. To inhale, he had to push himself up. The battle that day was restraint. That was the hardest thing to do nothing when you have the power to do everything. Agony.
Father,
Jesus spoke.
forgive them.
To speak,
For
he
they
had to
know
raise
not
his
what they
torn
do.
body. Every word cost blood, and statements that were
peace I
anything
give
but
unto you.
improvised. They were
Let
strategic.
not your hearts
Each
be
one was a
troubled,
declaration of eternal
neither
weight.
let them be afraid.
Father, forgive them. Document that absolved humanity of ignorance. Today, you will be with me in paradise. It was the promise of instant redemption, eternal life to a repentant criminal. The cross became a doorway. I thirst. It was not merely a physical need. Every detail was falling into place. Nothing was improvised. Nothing was accidental. Every word was exact, measured, and
I
life
am
are
the
in the
light
power
of the
of the
world.
tongue. And
He
on
who
that hill,
follows me shall not
life
walk
himself
in darkness,
was issuing decrees
but have the light of
above
life.
his head. Jesus of Nazareth, King of the Jews. Rome meant it as mockery, but it was in fact an official proclamation.
What is happening
Unknowingly
to the
declared
sky?
the central truth. At noon,
Hold on to me!
the sun went dark. Not a metaphor, but a historical
so
phenomenon.
dark.
The spiritual war being waged. The hours passed, and the silence of the angels was the greatest display of discipline, obedience. Intervening would have spared the body, but it would have doomed humanity forever. The sacrifice demanded. Redemption. That is why Michael guarded the plan. That is why Uriel recorded the covenant. That is why the Legion in history. Yet, while the earth thought all was ending, the unseen realm knew the climax was seconds from beginning. Its brightest. The impossible happened. The sun yielded, and the sky went dark. At the 6th hour, Golgotha was wrapped in a deep darkness. It was a dense, supernatural shadow, as though the light itself refused to shine. Eyes to what was unfolding.
What is happening?
People took
Are
it
we
as a
safe
strange
here?
phenomenon.
Look at the sky.
The soldiers
it's getting
kept
worse.
their watch, uneasy but resolute.
What is
Others
that
looked up
sound?
at the
We
sky in
have to go
fear.
now. Look at the sky.
But while people looked up,
It's getting
afraid of the
closer.
creeping darkness, the real horror was unfolding. Was taking place. Jesus, nailed to that cross, began to draw into himself the moral poison of every human. Agony had started earlier, but now something no human eye could comprehend was taking place. Substitution. The sun wasn't just bleeding, it started to press down on him. Eden's disobedience, Cain's violence, the corruption before the flood, the idolatry of the nations, pride, oppression, murder, unbelief. Everything that drives a wedge between humanity and God was compressed into a single point. Him, the sin of us all. It wasn't symbolic. It was a real transfer, and it had a consequence. Here came the thing Jesus dreaded most. Union with the Father encountered something he had never known. Distance. For the first time in eternity. The silence with a cry that tore through dimensions. Eli. Eli. Lama Sabachthani. Which means, my God. My God. Never had they seen distance between them. But now that perfect unity was being broken by human sin. They who had witnessed a rift in the Trinity. The Father could not intervene. If he did, redemption would unravel If judgment stopped halfway, no shortcuts. Jesus became the magnet for all human evil, the weight of every sin, past, present, and future. He endured the total separation that belonged to humanity, and most staggering of all, not even the angels fully understood it. But they had never witnessed anything like this. They were witnessing the deepest mystery of salvation. Michael steadied his sword. Silence. Millions of angels watched the greatest lesson in history unfold. The greatest power isn't the power to destroy, the ability to destroy your enemies, but the willingness to give yourself for them. During those endless 3 hours, spiritual death, the total separation from God, sin's final consequence, an agonizing vigil as the author of life tasted. To see the very Son of God, holy and pure, endure that rupture was unfathomable. It was like watching the sun implode. Spiritual universe were being overturned. Jesus was undergoing the second death, the total disconnection from the source of life. The moment came. The 9th hour. Jesus drew a breath. He pushed himself up on the nails one more time, and he spoke his final word. But its meaning runs far deeper. It means everything is accomplished. The debt is paid in full in the Roman world. In contracts, it signaled total fulfillment, not partial or provisional. Final. Uriel closed the ledger, was paid in full. No balance remained. Up to that moment, the adversary had a case. Satan could demand justice. But when the price was paid by a perfect substitute, the legal claim collapsed. Jesus bowed his head and yielded up his spirit. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have authority to lay it down. Father. Suddenly, the earth shook violently. The rocks split. The Gospels record that tombs were opened. Creation responded because the Creator was passing through death. But the most staggering event happened in the temple. It's the divide between a holy God and humanity. A massive barrier about 60 feet high, as thick as a hand. Holies, the place where for more than 1,000 years only the high priest could enter, was thrown open. Confusion on the earth. A Roman soldier was watching it all. He was a man inured to brutality and death. It all made sense. Looking at the body of Jesus, he proclaimed, "Truly, this man was the Son of God, the foundation of the world." And now they were hearing the first Gentile with a transformed heart. For the angels who had watched, first echo of victory. A Gentile confessed.
Forgive me,
The Creator's death set creation
for
free.
I have sinned.
It was the first sign that the death of their Lord, sacrifice, was finished. Yet to his followers, hope seemed lost. John, Mary, the mother of Jesus, and the women, distance. The afternoon was slipping away, and Jewish law was clear. The body had to be buried before nightfall. Then suddenly, a man named Joseph of Arimathea stepped forward. He was a respected member of the Sanhedrin, and looking the Roman governor straight in the eye, said, "Give me Jesus' body."
Permit me to see to his
Pilate
burial before
confirmed
the sun
the death
sets.
and agreed. He was not alone. Nicodemus, another member of the Sanhedrin, who had once visited Jesus at night, joined him. As the cold and the darkness began to settle over everything, not far from there, in a garden, stood a brand new tomb belonged to Joseph. They carried the body there and gently wrapped it in a linen shroud, rock to seal the entrance. Roman guards sealed the tomb. The disciples hid, shattered by fear and grief, buried. But it wasn't the end. It was the beginning. The Gospels tell of Friday's crucifixion and Sunday's resurrection. Where was Jesus really? While Jesus' body lay cold and still in the darkness of the tomb, condemned man, but as an invader, he went to break death's hold and set us free. Satan thought he had won. Since Eden, death had been sin's inevitable wage. The verdict was clear. The day you eat of it, you will surely die. Downward.
And with this
The
bite,
Spirit of Christ
the
descended
shadow of
into
death
hell,
spread
into
across
that
the
realm
land,
the Bible calls
echoing
Hades.
through eternity.
But why did Jesus go down? Satan, the accuser, wielded that law to demand the execution of every human being. The wages of sin is death. The souls of the righteous waited. Adam and Eve, awaiting redemption for their first transgression. Abraham, the father of faith. Not of sin, but of death itself, which had not yet been defeated. They were waiting on a promise. Ascended to Hades, Satan greeted him eagerly, believing he could keep him as his prisoner. But he had sprung the trap, willingly, bearing the guilt of others. And by entering hell, he was breaking the system from the inside out. He was paid by a flawless substitute. The transaction was sealed at the cross, and the payment was collected in Hades. Peter writes that Christ went and proclaimed to the spirits in prison. He didn't go to ask
Rise
permission.
up from the dust.
He went to declare. The angels looked on rejoicing. For centuries, they had seen death shut its door, with no one able to open it from the inside and descend without return. But Jesus went after something more. Until that moment, death was a one-way door. No one had the authority to escape. Jesus descended into hell to take the keys of Hades. I have the keys of death and
Fear
Hades.
not,
To hold
I am
them,
the first
he had to descend
and the last.
and seize them. Fatal mistake. The accuser was disarmed. The enemy's plan became his own trap by making death swallow a sinless man. Before the cross, death was a door from which no human returned. After the cross, that door was no longer under. The keys of death changed hands. The angels looked on stunned as the hierarchy of the universe was rearranged. The Sabbath sealed the victory over death. Meanwhile, in Jerusalem, after Friday's impenetrable darkness and the Sabbath's crushing silence, grief and fear convinced the cross had been the terrible end. But then, Sunday broke with a dawn like no other. From the Father, it was time to declare that death had been defeated. At last, they could act. From the Father, it was time to declare that death had been defeated. At last, they could act. Finally unleashed. The Bible tells it like this. And there was a great earthquake, for an angel of the Lord. And the angel who came down was no ordinary messenger. His appearance was like lightning, and his clothing, purity, sent to proclaim a victory already won. But there's something important many don't understand. This angel, the time the angel arrived, when he came, the tomb was already empty. The resurrection was an act of God's power alone. The angel came only to roll the stone away and announce what had already happened. He took that immense stone, display of supreme authority. He sat on it as if it were a throne. What men saw as an impossible obstacle, the power was so overwhelming that the Roman guards keeping watch at the tomb shook and became like dead men. Mary Magdalene and other faithful followers of Jesus. But when they arrived, they found something they never expected. 2 angels were waiting for them. These very angels, the guardians during Jesus' agony on the cross, who did not intervene. Before them appeared 2 angels, robed in white, seated where Jesus' body had been laid.
Witness
is
the
risen.
dawn of the
God's
new age.
plan was fulfilled.
Be
Death was
transformed
conquered.
by the light.
Sin was defeated. Goes through history finds its answer. What did the angels do while the Son of God was dying? The angels obeyed. They waited in solemn silence while the price of our salvation was paid. And when the moment came, verse, it is a mystery so profound that, as the Apostle Peter says, these are things. Remember, it wasn't only people there. All heaven watched, and in their quiet obedience, today, those very angels are still at work. They don't rest. Angels haven't disappeared to serve those who will inherit salvation. They guard unseen paths and step into battles our eyes cannot see. Ministering spirits, they protect, they guide, they minister to the heirs of that blood-bought salvation. Yet their gaze remains fixed for the final command. For the story didn't end at the cross or the empty tomb. There's still a chapter left. But as the Lion of the tribe of Judah, this time, there will be no orders to hold back, no swords sheathed by an innumerable army of light, not to witness a sacrifice, but to execute judgment and celebrate the consummation. He is coming with the clouds, and every eye will see him. They are preparing for the final day, the day when there will be no silence. Return. In the end, it all comes down to an eternal truth. Evil wasn't conquered by force. Golgotha in an instant. The legions were ready, but redemption wouldn't come through destruction. It would come through love. Letting himself be wounded, by laying down his life for all of us. Evil expected violence, on pride, on revenge. But it's disarmed when someone chooses to love where it would be easier to hate. At the cross, but the one that sacrifices itself. If this message moved you, if at any point you felt something spark, because sometimes a single reflection written with honesty can become the very answer someone needed on their darkest night. And if you believe love is still the force that truly transforms the world, hit the like button. Someone who might be losing hope today. Because the world doesn't change with more noise. It changes with more light.